On this episode of China Uncensored, China tells the U.S., "Hey, you kids, get off my territorial waters." Nothing like a little public humiliation to encourage people to pay their debts. And finally, Hong Kong just went Hong wrong. Again, this is China Uncensored. Hi, welcome to China Uncensored. I'm your host, Chris Chappell. In our top story, yes, China and the U.S. are both concerned about North Korea, but they're still also maybe slightly worried about each other. Kind of like when the X-Men have to team up with Magneto to save mutant kind. That ends perfectly well, right? On Tuesday, a U.S. warship sailed through the South China Sea, close to a string of reefs and shoals called the Paracel Islands. Now, China says those reefs are Chinese territory. Vietnam says they're Vietnamese territory. The U.S. says they're in international waters, and if you have a problem with that, come argue with our warship. The Chinese Communist Party was not pleased. And this is a particularly sensitive time. Next week is the 19th Party Congress, a once every 5-year meeting of top Communist Party leaders. It's a huge propaganda event, and the party likes to look strong. Rise and shine, Xi Jinping. I would not want to be the cameraman who filmed that and released it to the world. But you know what else makes the CCP look even weaker than the core leader asleep on the job? A U.S. warship challenging their territorial claims, like it does on a regular basis. The Chinese regime may not be happy about it, but they'd better play nice because Donald Trump is coming to town next month. Trump is planning to make his first presidential visit there in November. I'm sure by then the whole sailing a warship through Chinese/international waters thing will have blown over. That U.S. warship isn't coming back. Until probably a month or two after Trump's visit. And on lighter issues, North Korea's nuclear weapons. Trump has been trying to pressure the Chinese regime to help stop North Korea. Meanwhile, Chinese state-run media is asking the U.S. and North Korea to just cool it, okay? But the reason they're asking everyone to calm down could be more about the Chinese regime's embarrassment. Because it turns out they don't have as much power over North Korea as they'd like the world to think they do. But they also don't want the U.S. to invade North Korea. Then China would have the U.S. military right up against the Chinese border, plus in the South China Sea. That's why the Chinese military has been getting a facelift ahead of the Party Congress. I hope it's better than Joan Rivers' facelift. Seriously though, Chinese leader Xi Jinping has spent the past several years purging political rivals in the military. In fact, there's been a huge turnover of top military officials. Xi's also attempting to transform the PLA into a streamlined, modern military. This includes becoming a global arms dealer. We'll have more on that later. But at least when it comes to military drones, President Trump is looking to counter China. China wants to dominate the $10 billion global drone market, but Trump wants to put America first in the exporting of killer drones. Washington will also seek to renegotiate a 1987 Missile Control Pact with the aim of loosening international restrictions on U.S. exports of unmanned aircraft. Whether China is going to be successful at truly transforming their military is hard to tell, but one thing is clear. It's Taiwan's military that the rest of the world needs to look out for. The Chinese Communist Party is no stranger to using parades to showcase its military. But nothing can compare to the parade Taiwan just held for its National Day. I think we all might need a second to absorb that more fully. Yes, if ever you wanted more proof that Taiwan and China are very different countries, just think about whether their soldiers look like they want to kill you or choreograph dances with you. Speaking of things under threat in China, cash. Gone are the days of paying with paper money like some old fogey or credit cards like some loser from the 2000s. In China, it's all the rage now to pay with your mobile phone. Mobile payment volume in the country more than doubled to $5 trillion in 2016. Yes, apparently China found a use for QR codes. Why has paying with your phone become so popular in China? It could be convenience. It could also be that it gives Chinese companies like Tencent access to hordes of personal data. That data can then be shared with the Chinese government. Or maybe it's a little of both. Who says you can't have oppression and convenience? But when talking about convenient payments, you have to talk about the most convenient payment method of all: not paying. China is plagued by big companies with connections to local governments running up huge debts and then never paying them back. Well, that's about to change. No, just kidding. But what is changing is how the Chinese regime will go after small-time debtors. Down with the underdog, punish the poor, prepare to be publicly shamed. The CCP has told local authorities to establish online platforms to expose debtors who fail to honor their credit obligations. For quite some time now, there's been a trend in China of using public humiliation to go after individuals who can't pay their debts. Billboards that name names, local officials who will bombard debtors with phone messages telling them to pay up, blacklisting them from getting on planes and high-speed trains. Public humiliation, really, is a proud tradition of the Chinese Communist Party, dating back to the dunce caps of the Cultural Revolution. But the days of being humiliated in front of a crowd are gone. Now, you can be humiliated in front of the entire country, because authorities said the online shaming platforms should be maintained by local news organizations. And who needs rule of law when you've got trial by media? And in other news, if you've been watching China Uncensored for a while, you'll know we've made 2 trips to Hong Kong. Once in 2014 to cover the Umbrella Movement, and just last year to interview activists like Joshua Wong.
When the beating of your heart,
The 2 of us are ready for Broadway. If they hadn't put Joshua in jail, times are changing in Hong Kong. The Chinese regime recently rejected the joint declaration that is the basis for Hong Kong freedoms denied in the mainland. And of course, expelling democratically elected lawmakers because the Communist Party doesn't like them. Well, most recently, British activist and friend of the show Benedict Rogers was denied entry into Hong Kong, which, like many heavy-handed things done by the CCP, will totally not backfire on them, like by causing huge amounts of negative publicity, or inspiring Rogers to set up a new NGO that will monitor Hong Kong's human rights situation. Is it a coincidence that Rogers, who is vocal in criticizing China and advocating for democracy in Hong Kong, was stopped at the Hong Kong airport just a week before the CCP's 19th Party Congress? Not sure, but I have a feeling I won't be able to do any on-the-ground reporting about it in Hong Kong. Shelley, would you like to go? No? Sure you would. And coming up after the break, just when you thought lasting peace between India and China had been achieved, India's defense minister does the unthinkable. What are you still doing here? The show's over. I know, you're not ready to say goodbye. Okay. Go over to ChinaUncensored.tv. There you'll see more great episodes of China Uncensored, including full half-hour episodes you won't see anywhere else. I'm already there waiting for you.